Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Avorion episode 37. I'm Enigmius, and today the Serpovectem, I remember my own ship's name, is continuing with the build. We're working on the underside of the ship, basically, picking up where we left off in the last episode. And the goal, essentially, is to fill it all in and do so in a way that leaves an appearance that I'm happy with, considering we've got a lot of different curves coming together. Compound curves, compound angles, all kinds of interesting things that add visual interest, that make a ship stand out relative to, for example, the ships that you see on the loading screens, which are almost universally made out of cubes and rectangles. Curves and slopes, compound angles, for me, are kind of important. It's not to say that builds that use more rudimentary shapes are bad. Just for my own personal preference, when it comes to building things, I like to have slightly more diversity in how things go together and the shapes that we use. The difficulty with this process, and particularly regarding this ship, is that you can place a bunch of blocks and then you kind of look at everything, the way it all comes together, the things that you anticipated as well as the results that you didn't anticipate. And maybe it requires some changes. There are plenty of circumstances, plenty of situations that I encounter on an ongoing basis doing this kind of thing, where I look back at what I just spent the last 5 or 10 minutes doing, and it's very clear to me that it didn't work out the way that I had intended. So we clear out the stuff that I don't like, and I try again, and I kind of try and learn from the decisions that I made that led to the outcome that I wasn't happy with, because there could be circumstances in the future where what I did is actually a good way to approach a build. There's always that possibility. There's also the possibility that I'll look at it and kind of question what the hell is wrong with me that I could come up with something like that and let it go on for so long before recognizing that there's absolutely no way we were going to keep it or deliberately duplicate it at any point in the future ever. There's different ways, we arrive at the conclusion. So what ends up happening is, because this is kind of a long, skinny ship, or the main hull section is this long, skinny sort of container, I'll place a few blocks, and then I'll attach a few blocks to those blocks, and then maybe I'll attach some more blocks to those blocks, and then I'll look back and say, okay, well, where it all came together, the ones that I just placed are maybe not bad, but I need to do a better job with the transitions in the first that I placed. So I'll remove some of the blocks, but not all, come up with a better profile, replace the blocks that we removed with something that I'm happier with, but now we need to adjust the last blocks that I had placed in order to have everything line up the way that I would like it to. And it's sort of like chasing my tail throughout the entire length of the ship. This entire part of the build is a lot of doing a little bit, making some tweaks or some adjustments or some just absolute changes, having to make some adjustments to the things that I thought were okay in order to line up with the new blocks. And then after a bunch of iterations like that, then I get to move forward. We get to make a little bit more progress. And it works out to be, for me, most of the time, a very fun and engaging process, because I'm not expecting everything to be perfect the first time around. I don't require that it be perfect the first time around. So by messing around and adjusting and bringing myself closer to the kind of profile that I'm looking for, that's entertainment value for me. And maybe not everyone is going to feel the same way. I can appreciate that some people might just feel very frustrated that they have something in their head that they want to get into the game, and when their early attempts to make it happen maybe don't work, they feel like they aren't going to be able to make it work at all. And consequently, there's frustration and people aren't having fun anymore. The reason why I'm mentioning all of this, again, because this is the kind of thing that I talk about a lot, and the purpose primarily is to encourage people to just have fun with it and not attach expectations to the outcome, because it's not always going to be perfect the first time. There's got to be a learning curve, and there's going to be mistakes, and there's going to be things that actually seemed to look good in your head when you finally get them in game, they don't look so good anymore. That happens too. But also, when it comes to creating these videos and this kind of build and trying to make everything come together in a way that's interesting, maybe entertaining, maybe informative to watch, something that you can either just watch and enjoy or maybe watch and learn from, there's only a certain amount of value to be found in this process. Like you can see unfolding directly in front of you right here, where we've moved past this part of the ship that we're working on. We've built past it, but it just didn't work in my mind the way that I really wanted it to, and it was far enough away from what I had in mind that I decided now's the time to go back and tweak, make the adjustments, get it sorted out as best I can. Once I get it to the point where it either looks the way that I want it to, or I can't at the moment think of any ways to get it closer to what I want, then I move on to the next step. But being that it's sort of a time-lapse thing that we're looking at, and being that the view that we have of what's going on sometimes makes it a little bit difficult to even remember where on the ship we're working. Yeah, I can tell you that we're working pretty close to the front of the ship, underneath that sort of bump out on the sides. That would be like the jaws of the snake. We're working kind of below that and trying to fill in this gap. But after a while, it's kind of, yeah, we've seen this part of the ship before a lot. We've seen a lot of different blocks go in here, and we've seen a lot of different changes, and we've seen a lot of different modifications. And it would be nice if we could just get something new to look at. So I made a decision that for the balance of this build, and just this one specifically because of the nature of the shape, I don't want to deny people an opportunity to see the process. But if it's getting just heavy and tedious and reworking the same area of the ship, over and over and over again, I reserve the right to snip things just to kind of keep things moving forward a little bit. So it's important that I let people know now. Otherwise, it might get a little bit confusing when I'm talking later on about, I snipped out a part that we did a thing, and this is what it ended up looking like when we were done. If we explain that it's just for this sort of situation where we're spending an awful lot of time in the same spot, tweaking and reworking things several times, several iterations before we finally get it the way that I'm happy with, there's a little bit of transparency and there's a little bit of understanding that people have going through, that they understand that it's not necessarily going to be every single block placed that's showcased in the video, but the important stuff, the main sections of the ship, you'll have an opportunity to see them up close, probably have an opportunity to see at least part of the process of building out that particular part of the ship. And then when we get to different areas of the ship where it's a little bit easier to kind of put things together without the repetition and without the tedium, then you're more likely to see the entire process when we get to those areas. So for example, for this lower part of the hull, going as far back as the cutout sections for the wings, probably not going to see a whole bunch beyond this video here and what we're showing now. But the wings themselves will probably see almost every block, if not every block that we place, because it's a different part of the ship. It's something that we haven't really spent a lot of time on, and I don't expect it to be horrendously difficult. I think it'll be a fairly straightforward kind of thing to build those out the way that I have in mind. And then by the time we're all said and done, hopefully people will have a fairly clear idea of what went into building the ship, even if they didn't see each and every single detail. So that's fair warning. We're going to kind of just mix up the approach a little bit for the sake of keeping things interesting for as many people as possible without denying anyone anything critical that might be a learning or entertainment opportunity. So all that time talking about why we're going to be making some adjustments to what we present, and we've been working in the same area of the ship the entire time. However, we're making progress on this area of the ship. And it's now down to this last little segment, this sort of flat segment where it's coming together with the lower part of the ship from the sides. And it's actually pretty close to something that I'm happy with. And actually, as I was thinking about it, literally as I was working in this spot here, there was a part of me that was thinking in the back of my feeble mind that there's probably going to be some changes, some tweaks and adjustments, just because there are very small sections that just aren't lining up the way that I would like them to. But it's I'm to the point now where if I never get around to adjusting those till I'm fully happy with them, I can still be satisfied with the end result and not feel like I took a shortcut and sacrificed the end result because of it. It's sort of the qualification in my mind is, like I say, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't always have to be exactly what I had in mind, but I have to be able to look at it and say, yeah, that's kind of neat. I'm happy with that, even if it wasn't such and such. That way, I don't have to hold myself to unreasonable standards that ultimately just kind of suck the fun out of everything, especially when you're struggling to live up to your own standards. If I have standards set for myself that say everything has to be a certain way, there's no one around to tell me that's okay, you don't have to worry about that particular standard today. I don't have a supervisor or a boss who's saying, yeah, you won't get in trouble if you just let that one slide today. So I have to be willing to give myself that little bit of leeway on my own with certain little guidelines attached to it that say, you know, if we're letting it slide, there's certain criteria that we have to meet nevertheless. Like I say, it doesn't have to be exactly what I had in mind. If I look at it and I think, ew, I can't let it slide, I don't necessarily have to fix it right now, but sooner or later I'm going to have to come back and fix it, and that's okay. But I don't have to hold myself to standards that really just undermine the entire process and make it less fun than it could be if we were just a little bit more reasonable with ourselves. So we're filling out a few more details, working a little bit more on the underside, getting everything to kind of come together and line up as best we can. The next episode, I think we'll probably just kind of cheat a little bit. We'll scoot a little bit farther back and fill it in, and then the next episode will start when we start working on the wings. We'll still have the upper portion of the hull. We'll still have a few other structural elements that I have in mind. I don't have anything set in stone. Well, there's one thing that I have set in stone, but it's not necessarily an enormous part of the build. Like I say, it's still kind of an open book in terms of what I expect, but we'll kind of roll with it. And there's still stuff to do, and I think I'm really happy with the way that it's turning out up to this point. We'll just try and keep that momentum going. So if you want to be notified about the next and future episodes in this and other series, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.